Okay, so we already went over works cited in class. We already, hopefully, most of you already created your works cited. I'm guessing if you're here watching this, you have not created your works cited and you want help. So hopefully, there's at least one of you who watches this. So if you're watching this, thank you. Okay, so first, what you need to do, go. I'm opening a new doc, but you should go to your if you've started writing your draft, go to the draft and scroll down to the bottom of that. Start a new page, and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna pull up. I just found an article that looks interesting. It's an op-ed. Why Ice Cube's political logic is so dangerous. um, and so the first thing you want to do is go to the Module 2 essay resource page and click on instructions for how to create a works cited. This gives you information about what information to gather. Okay, this is for the 8th edition of MLA Format Handbook. So these are the things you need. Now, you're not going to have all of them. So we're just going to go through and try to find each one. I'll show you what I find in my article. So the first thing, if you scroll down, you'll see that we need the author and then a period after the author. The author refers to the person, group, or group primarily responsible for producing the work. So if you have one author, it's last name, comma, first name, period. If you have two authors, it's in the order presented in the work. It's not alphabetical anymore. It's last name, comma, first name, comma, and first name, last name, period. If there's three authors, then it's last name, comma, first name of the first one presented, and then just put comma et al, period. And that's it. So mine, I believe, has one author. It's Peniel E. Joseph. So I'm going to write Joseph, comma, E. Peniel, period. Of course, this should all be in Times New Roman 12 point font, double spaced. Okay, space. Okay, so that's the first thing. Let's make this a little bigger so you can see it better. All right. Then we go back. So we took care of the author. Now we have the title of the source. If the title is in an independent source, like a book, anthology, periodical, these are things that stand by themselves. They're not contained in anything. Then it's in italics. If it's something that's part of a bigger whole, then it's in quotation marks. We have an article that's from a newspaper or from a website. So because it's contained in something else, this will be in quotation marks. The bigger thing will be in italics. Okay, that's called a container, but we'll get to that. So we put the title of the article in quotation marks. So I go back here. Why Ice Cube's political logic is so dangerous. And notice it's mostly in lowercase. I'm just going to copy and paste. Now, when you copy and paste, you see what happens here. So you need to highlight and make sure it's all in Times New Roman 12-point font and there's no bold or anything like that. And keep it exactly how it is. Like if there's lowercase letters, that's fine. And then there's a period here. Make sure the period goes inside the quotation marks. And then we go back here. Of course, you can pause the video if I'm going too fast, which I probably am. Now we have a container. When the source being documented forms part of a larger whole, the larger whole can be thought of the container. Containers are italicized and followed by a comma. Okay. So if you scroll down, you can see that if we have the article from a newspaper or magazine, then the container is the title of the newspaper or magazine. Now, this is confusing because it's also an article from a website, so it's the title of the website. Most likely, the title of the newspaper, so in this case, CNN or news broadcasting company, is the same. Cable News Network, CNN. Yeah. So I would just put CNN. So it's usually about the same. usually the title of the website is the same as the title of the newspaper. If it's like a different publisher, then we could talk about it. But usually, just go with the name of the newspaper and the news organization. So I'm going to put in italics CNN, and it's all caps, and then comma. Okay. If you go back here, it shows a comma, right? It says title of container and then comma. If you go to the very top, you'll see that it's author period, title, source period, title of container, comma, 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 and then period at the very end. So the rest of these will be commas. Then we'll scroll way down because there's all kinds of stuff that you need for, like if you have double containers, like if you're talking about a specific TV episode, title of the episode's in quotation marks, and the first container is the title of the TV show. But then where did you find the TV show? I found it on Netflix. So Netflix is the second container. So it gets a little confusing. But in any case, okay, we have no other contributors. We don't have like a translated by, illustrated by, edited by, etc., etc. We have no version. Okay, it's not like the unabridged version or the King James version or something like that. There's no number because it's not a periodical. So for publisher, omit a publisher's name for periodicals like journal, magazine, or newspaper articles, and for websites whose title is essentially the same as the name of its publisher. So if the news organization is owned by a bigger news organization, if you scroll down to the bottom and it has a copyright and the company is different than, like if this was different than CNN, it's not. Cable News Network stands for CNN, so it's exactly the same. Now I could put Warner Media Company. You could, but this is the division that really published it. So I'm just going to keep it a CNN. So if the publisher is no different than the title of the website or the title of the newspaper, then you don't include it. Okay, so most of you will not have publishers. Okay, unless it's published by someone different. Then we've got the last thing, which is the location, and that's the URL. For websites, include the URL. So I'm going to go back to the URL, highlight that, and paste it here. Just to make sure it's Times New Roman. Yep, still Times New Roman 12-point font. Okay, put a period at the end. So now I have all, and that's okay that it turns into a hyperlink. Now I have all my information. So you're like, it's done, right? No. So now we go back to the essay resource page and we click here for works cited example. Then this shows you what it should look like. And you're like, Mr. Kramer, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, what do you mean by that? Okay, then go down to the notes. Works cited, the works cited begins at the end of your paper on a new page. The header continues wherever it left off. So up here it says Schumacher 4. That means that I wrote my paper on 1 through 3, pages 1 through 3, and this is on page 4. The title is works cited. It is not bolded, enlarged, or underlined, nor does it have quotation marks around it. So I go back to my works cited. And apparently someone pointed out that if you only have one, then it's works cited because you only have one work. Okay, that's fine. If you put works, I wouldn't mark it wrong. I've been doing that for years. Whoops. There it is. Okay, first line of every entry begins at the left margin. Every line after the first line is indented. To indent, place the cursor at the beginning of the second line, push enter, and then tab. This should really be press enter, okay? It does not work if I come over here and click tab. You'll see what happens, right? Wait a second. What is that a video? No, I don't want that video. How do I get? Oh, no, it's HTML. Yeah, that's fine. That should be okay. Okay. Anyway, this doesn't work, right? Because when you come over here and you push that, and you're like, hey, what's going on? Okay, so here's what you do. Follow directions, push enter, and then tab, okay? And then come over here and push tab and delete. And you're good to go, okay? Now, if you have a second article, which you don't need one, but if you do, make sure it's alphabetical order, make sure it's done the same way. The first line is all the way against the margin and everything else underneath it is, you know, indented. Don't worry about, if there's like space here, that's just the way it formats. It's totally fine. So that should be it. Is there anything at the bottom there? Double spaced, alphabetical order, all the content. Yeah, if you need to know, this is a link to that other, what information to include in your works cited. So that's it. If you have any questions, if you're not sure, you want to send me a draft, make sure you did it right. You could always do that. Okay, thanks.